The Tigers podcast is brought to you by Ramsdens Currency, exclusive foreign currency partner of the Castleton Tigers. At Ramsdens, you will always get a great rate on travel money in cash or loaded onto a Ramsden MasterCard prepaid travel card. Ramsdens has over 170 branches around the UK, with one right here in Castleford in the Carlton Lane shopping centre. Ramsdens are local, convenient and trusted, so pop into your local branch or visit www.ramsdencurrency.co.uk.
Welcome to the Tigers podcast. He's Tommo.
He's Westy.
And today we're going to do something special for our centenary of the club. And with it being 30 years of Super League, we're going to have a bit of fun and we're going to discuss what we believe is Cass's ultimate Super League team. So why don't we start at the very beginning, Tommo? Get into it and talk about fullbacks.
Yeah, let's go ahead, mate, and delve into our opinions on our all-time 17, eh?
Brilliant. Something just to throw a caveat in there is if we're going to talk through the players that we spoke about from the Super League era, if it's the case that Tommo wants one player, I want another player, then we're going to have a look and we've hit a bit of an impasse. We're going to talk about, or we're going to look at a top trump. So everyone knows how top trumps works. So what we'll do is we'll go on one stat. So either tries scored for the club, appearances, a win percentage, which has taken me forever to work it out. So hopefully it's right. And goals as well. So we'll base it on those stats, and whoever comes out on top based on those stats will be the winner for the position.
Yeah. I must add in there, I am a little bit younger than you, so you might have seen some players that I can't really remember too much of.
Vice versa, mate. You've probably seen some players that I can't remember these days with my age. So you never know. You never know. So let's start with fullback then, mate, like we said, as we mean to go on. So we've had some good fullbacks, mate. We've had some not so good fullbacks.
Yeah.
We've hopefully got some moving forward as well that are going to potentially add to this list. But for me, I think there's definitely four standouts in the Super League era. I think your first one is Graham Steadman. Obviously, at the back end of his career, you probably won't remember him that much.
No.
We were at the back end of his career when Super League started. He had a couple of years with us, 96, 97, where he was in and out, mainly between fullback and standoff, like he had been most of his career. But I'm probably being sentimental there because he's probably my all-time favourite Cass fullback. Whereas he'd probably admit it as well. He was on the downward spiral at the start of Super League in his infancy. I mean, another one that you'll probably just remember, Jason Flowers.
Jason Flowers, yeah.
Yeah, he took the mantle on. He was massively key to that 99 team where we did really well. And 98 as well. He did really well in 98. He came into his own and made the position his own at fullback.
Homegrown player as well, let's believe.
Homegrown player. He is a Cass lad, homegrown player. Ended up in the pack before he left the club. So another one that were moved around after a pretty bad injury, to be fair. But he was a really, really good fullback. Very close, I'd say, to being dream team fullback in that 99. I know Rugby League World's dream team fullback, but not the official. I remember that well, thinking, wow, he's made fullback, and then realising that it's Rugby League World and not the actual Super League team of the year. But he must have been very, very close. Good defender. Good at backing up. Really, really, really strong under the high ball. And a Cass lad, like we say. Whereas I think the next two we'll talk about, mate. If you wanna pick up the next two.
Yeah, so this is more sort of that I've got fresh memories of sort of remembering is obviously Zach Hardacre. Obviously the 1 year he sort of had with us, the team that we had there and what we'd sort of achieved in terms of winning the league leaders and by how many points and stuff like that. That year he was sort of unbelievable, wasn't he? Obviously replacing another guy we're going to talk about in a minute, Luke Dawn. Luke Dawn were always a very, very tacky fullback. But obviously some people question his sort of defence at time, and then flip it coin. Zach was sort of opposite to that, where he sort of wasn't the best natural ball playing fullback that we're going to sort of weren't really known for sort of cutting out long balls where he was winger or anything like that. But his defence were really good. And obviously the coach we sort of had at the time, he was very good at working with players and improve them, and he sort of brought his game on a lot more, didn't he, to a different sort of dimension and stuff. But yeah, and then obviously sort of Luke Dawn. We should have done it wrong, other way around, shouldn't we? Really, but Luke Dawn. I'm led to believe, obviously, in his second spell when we signed him, I think he actually got the 6 shirt. I think he was supposed to play 6 that year, didn't we? And I think Tansy had 1. But again, I've never seen a guy who was like that in attack in terms of how smart, intelligent he was, organising his defensive line. And I actually, a guy who I'm friends with, he actually played with him in that team, and he said, like, one of the smartest guys he's ever played with were Dorney. So, well, again, going back to Graham Stedman, I might be wrong on this. Didn't we actually pay a bit of a record fee for him at the time in Super League? Was it?
At the time, mate. Yeah, not in Super League.
Not in Super League.
Old First Division. It were 89, 90. I think we signed him. It might have been the year before that, but from memory, like I say, getting old now, can't quite remember.
I think a lot of Featherstone Rovers fans are. They used to remind me at work that it was actually funny because they'd done an interview in the programme obviously years ago, and basically said how much he'd love Fev and he were going to stay there. And then I think a couple of weeks later, he were wearing Cash shirts. So
brilliant. Yeah, definitely. Very, very. 4 really strong fullbacks. We've had some others as well. Like we say, we had Michael Platt for a year in Super League. We had him obviously initially in the Championship. He was solid. Went on to bigger and better things at Bradford and a couple other clubs when we went down again, unfortunately. But and like we said, Jordan Rankin brought something to the team.
People forget Richie Owen before he had his obviously horrific injury. Richie Owen was sort of touted as to be a potential England player, didn't he?
He was.
People sort of forget how good Richie Owen was, weren't they, before he got his horrific injury.
That's it, mate. That's it. So I think we've got 4 clear candidates there.
Yeah,
I'm sure people will tell us we're wrong, but that's what it's all about, isn't it? So, who'd be your choice, Tommo?
I think sort of for the 4 years that he were here, obviously it was difficult for Zach because he was just not difficult, but it was just here for a year to sort of judge off. But I think Dorney, if you watch on some of them highlights from sort of 14 to 15, 16, honestly, it's just unbelievable. For me, yeah, he'd probably be in my starting fullback, I think.
There we go, mate. We're in agreement. First one, I go Luke Dawn as well. I always remember that try he scored at Leeds where Junior Moore, he'd always follow Junior Moore.
Yeah, scattered him, didn't it?
Back, little offload outside the back, and he went over to pretty much win us the game. So, I'm glad we're in agreement there, mate. Luke Dawn.
After a good start, aren't we?
We are, mate. We haven't got fisticuffs yet. That's why we've been separated by online rather than in person, mate. Wingers then, mate. We've got 2 wingers to pick. So I think, again, there's a number of standouts that we've had. We've had some good, not so good, same as every club. Do you want to make a start, mate, with a couple?
Yeah, so, again, for me personally, first person that sort of comes into your mind is obviously Dennis Solomono. I think he's still the current try scorer. Hopefully that doesn't get broken by Sevo this year. I can remember watching Solomono 2014. London had that team, weren't they? Where they were getting back.
15, 16, we had him.
Yeah, but I can remember watching when he was the year before we signed him. And I remember he had a lot of pace about him, but he seemed a bit like all over the place sort of thing, if that makes sense. And again, sort of the coach we had at the time, he had a knack of sort of improving players and bringing them to a certain standard, didn't he? And that year in 16, it was just unbelievable, wasn't it? You almost knew he was going to score a try at sort of every single game. His carries were good from backfield. He was quick. Yep. He was good in the air. Probably one of the best I've ever seen in the air. Although a player that won't come under people's sort of radar was Kurt Dixon. Kurt Dixon was very good in the air as well.
He was an accomplished goal kicker as well, mate. He was a fantastic goal kicker, was Kurt Dixon. He's one of those that did a lot of work, Kurt Dixon, without people realising how good he was and how important he was to the team. Not just
I agree on that one, mate.
His carries and his defence was good as well. I think he started off as a centre, hadn't he? Gone to rugby union, then came to Cass. After a spell starting at Hull, went to rugby union in Hull, and then came to Cass when we were in the Championship. And never looked back. Really, he was a really good, solid signing for us, and it was just a shame that he had to
retire. Really, didn't he?
Mm.
Yeah, and he had a good career, didn't he, for Cass? And I mean, Greg Eden as well, another guy. You know, he come through the club as an academy player, he's a Cass lad. Sort of went away, didn't he? And he sort of got branded the famous line by Nathan Brown, didn't he? The sort of next Billy Slater, were it?
Next Billy Slater.
But yeah, again, probably not a lot of people remember, but when we signed Greg in 2017, initially he was actually to replace Luke Dawn. Greg was signed to play fullback, and obviously Zach come available and we signed him. But again, sort of try ratio, Greg Eden, they've not been much better, has there? So again, a really quick player. Had a bit of an error in him every now and again, but he always made up for it for what he did sort of when he got the ball. Rugby IQ, really good. Really good pass with the ball. I think he played a bit of half, didn't he, when he was younger?
He did at the back end of his time at the club, yeah.
Yeah, and he finished 2022 under Radford. I think we finished the season.
Who called him a Ferrari?
Yeah,
if I remember, he said he's a Ferrari.
Yeah. So Greg's definitely up there, but again, there's been some other players I'm sure you're going to mention now that was probably within running, isn't there?
Yeah, a couple more, mate. A couple more. I mean, with the season that he's had, it's unfortunate that he's out injured at the minute. But in a couple of years, we could be saying Gary on this, couldn't we? With his try scoring ratio as well.
Definitely,
that's increased this season. So his tries to games ratio is getting up there compared to another man I'm going to mention. Obviously left the club, another one in acrimonious circumstances, but Justin Carney.
Yeah, definitely.
Ian Millward didn't do much right at the club, but I'm sure somebody else we're going to speak about in a little while when we get to the forwards is another one thing he got right. Justin Carney is one of those at the time. A bit slow, a bit of a slow burner. I think he came off a bad injury, but when the coach took over in 2013, it would probably be our coach if we were deciding a coach as well for Super League. As much as it pains me to see what he's doing elsewhere at the minute, he just turned him into a different player. Again, he made him an absolute monster. He always not the tallest guy, but probably the widest for a winger that we've had at the club for a long time. Anyway, people would say Ravalawa, but he was definitely, he packed a punch for a little guy. Did Justin Carney? I'll never forget him going over the top of Cass's. Somebody that the Cass fans love to hate in Sam Tompkins. Going right through him and scoring a fantastic try in the process, and just running at him all day. And he just couldn't. He just looked an average player. We know how good a player Sam Tompkins was when he was on it, but he just made him look an average player that day. Just ran at him every time.
I can remember him. I think it was 2015. I can remember him running over the top of Real Crabtree as well, away at Huddersfield. I think it was as well.
And his tries to games ratio, I think it was 64 in 62. I'll probably correct it on that, but absolutely phenomenal. Like I say, it's just a shame that things transpired and he left the club that we won't talk about. But that led to a bit of a sour note at the end, same as Zach. But these things happen, don't they? Sent to test you. And then the only other one that I could that I'd like to bring forward is probably somebody that you might have seen the back end of his time at Cass, but not the start. Going back to 99 again, Darren Rogers. Darren Rogers came a bit of a bolter signing. The wingman that year was supposed to be John Wells and, if I recall, Danny Ellison. Darren Rogers, he'd had a really good game against us in 97 for Salford. The 3 times we played them at their place, once in the Cup when we lost 4-0. And then once in the league against us, he played really well, and he was part of that really good Salford team that came from the Championship under Andy Gregory into Super League and competed really well. And if he had playoffs, then would have been in the playoffs in the first year. But yeah, he came to the club. Not the most conventional looking rugby league player. He'd probably
tall
say
guy,
that.
Wasn't he? Bit of a tall player, wasn't
he? Tall guy, a bit gangly, but he knew how to finish a try. He played at the 2000 World Cup for England as well. Got called up by another Cass lad, John Keir, looking after us there. Called him up, and he pretty much played every game at that World Cup as well. So it just shows that, and that was probably, 2000 wasn't as, we still made the playoffs, but it wasn't as fluid a season as 99 was. But he still kept his form, still kept into the England reckoning, and his games to tries ratio is pretty good as well. Moved to fullback as well, the latter of his career at the club, but an absolute fantastic finisher, raw pace. It never looked like he was, moving that quick, but he was rapid. I think because of his size and how tall he was, I think that slowed him down really. But it seemed to slow him down, but it didn't. But yeah, I think there's some really good candidates there, especially in the, if we were looking outside Super League, we'd be talking all day, won't we? But Super League, I think they're the Eden, Carney, Solomona, and Rogers and Kirk Dixon. I think they're the definite candidates. So who'd be your two from that, Tommo?
Oh, is there? Before we did this, I sort of had it in my head when we were 17. But when you're doing it, and I'm listening to you talk about it, it sort of changes your mind, doesn't it? Puts things into perspective. But I think for me personally, I would go with probably Greg Eden and Dennis Solomona. I think.
Ooh, I'm gonna. I
Bit of
agree.
a Gary
Greg
Neville
Eden.
moment there.
I know, mate. Ooh, I'm gonna go with Greg Eden.
Yeah,
but I have to go with Justin Carney, mate.
Yeah.
So I think we need to top Trump, mate. Now, I don't think we should go on tries or appearances. I think we should go on win percentage, mate. So let's have a look at win percentage then. So
can you do you know how many games they've both played?
Yeah. So I'll tell you now, mate. Give me 1 second. I prepared earlier.
Yeah.
1 second. I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know. So let's have a look then. So
I'd say Carney's played a few more games. I'd say not
Carney
too many.
played 62. And Dennis Solomona, bear with me, 45.
Hmm.
And the win percentages are pretty close as well, mate. I'm not going to lie. So it's up to you, mate. Do we go on games or do we go on win percentage?
Ooh.
Now you know I'm winning.
It's up to you, mate. It's up to you. It's hard saying it because when Carney first come in 13, we're obviously it wasn't the best of teams, but I can remember 16, Denny's last year. We had a lot of injuries, didn't we? Like we were signing, felt like Paddy Flynn and Danny Tickling that year. We had a lot of injuries, didn't we? So I'll just whatever will be, mate. You go ahead and
let's go wins then, mate.
You go wins then.
So Carney, surprisingly, is 50%. Dennis Solomona, 50.3.
Yeah, it's close, isn't it?
It is very close, mate. So you win that, mate. So Dennis Solomona's and you win. Just
I'm not sure how well that'll go down though with a fan base having Dennis Solomona. Like
I don't think Carney would either.
Oh, true.
We're both controversial. Let's just go Kirk Dixon. So we've locked in, mate. So we've got Luke Don, we've got Greg Eden, and we've got Denny Solomona. So moving swiftly on to centres then, mate. So I think one's going to be pretty much a shoe-in. So I'll make a start on centres, mate. So for me, going back to 99 again, because I always remember that season very fondly. The player that we brought in again, he'd had a year over here at Warrington. Then he came to the club. And apart from probably one of the men that we're going to speak about very soon that I'll let you talk about, he was an absolutely fantastic defensive centre. Absolute hard as nails. Didn't look it, but he was hard as nails. The man they call Monkey, Michael Eager. Absolutely brilliant. Also came back to the club.
I can remember that.
You'll probably remember him from that time, don't you? As opposed to first time round.
2005, I think he played it. I don't know if he played it final actually. He might have done. I know he come back to.
Him and Valsey did. They came back, didn't they, to play in it to get us back up. The club obviously meant a lot to him. Really, really good defender, mate. I can't stress enough how good a defender he was. I mean, his second rower that he played with was which I'm going to talk about later on, was a really, really good defender as well, which helped him out. but he was phenomenal, and he could get his wingman away as well, which is another reason why Darren Rodgers scored so many tries, to be perfectly honest, when they were on the same wing. Really, really, really strong. Down-to-earth bloke, really nice bloke. Can't speak highly enough of him. I could talk all day about him, how good a player he was, how strong he was, how, he could hit like a steam train, but at the same time as well, he could get his wingman away. And I always remember the fantastic try when, watch it on YouTube if you've never seen it, Cast fans, when Dean Sampson took out Ollie Marnes for Halifax, and we were losing the game, and then he passed it to Eager, and he just went in corner. Great try. It always stands out, that one. There were loads he scored. He scored the first, was it the second or the first try at the JJB at the first game? He also scored one against Leeds. I think that the club had posted the other day as well, which is a fond memory. Really, really good centre. Another one from that era as well. I'll let you talk about the two modern ones, Tommo. Unfortunately, isn't doing so great these days. But Francis Maloney, really, really good club man, really good centre. We had him 98, 99.
And two spells, didn't he, with the club, didn't he?
Is he what, mate? Sorry?
Yeah, 2 spells, didn't he, with the club, did he?
He did. He played 98, 99, and then we released him. Still don't know why to this day that we let him go for Logan Campbell. Bit baffling, but he came back, and he was coming back off an injury again, so his second spell probably wasn't as good. But that 98 team and that 99 team, mate, he was really, really solid, really good. He was signed as a standoff from Oldham. He'd bounced around a couple of clubs, but he'd always been solid everywhere he'd been. But in that 99 team, he was an absolute key component in that centre. Again, set up a lot of tries for his wingman, either John Wells or Ellison, whoever was playing on the wing at that time. Really, really strong, really powerful.
I'm sure I can remember him kicking did he once kick a drop goal away at Widnes to keep us up, one of the years?
We didn't quite stay up, did we? But
we're not.
2004, wasn't it? But
we're it. We're really close game with it, Widnes away with it. I think I can vaguely remember.
Was, mate, it was, and he kicked a fantastic drop goal to give us another stay of execution for another week or so, didn't he? So, really good player, really strong. Moving on then, Tommo.
Yeah, obviously I'm 30 now. I can very sort of remember my colleague as sort of 2003. That's probably the earliest memory I've sort of got, and I always remember sort of family members who got me into sporting Castled. I always really spoke very highly of him, said how much of a solid sort of centre he was. But yeah, unfortunately, I sort of can't remember too much about him. Obviously, the more modern day centres in Shenny and Jay Webster.
Yeah,
I think the sort of period from when Darryl Powell sort of come to the club, a lot of people sort of talk about your Gales and your Hardacres and McShanes, but for me, I think there were a period where these two lads were within a shout of being best centres in league in some certain years. I mean, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Shenny got in a few dream teams over his time. Again, two sort of contrasting profiling as centres. Webster were more of a strike centre, wasn't he? That occasionally towards back end of his career played a little bit of back row, and he always seemed to come up with some top tries, didn't he? Where he'd sort of, someone had hit him on a short lead, and he'd sort of make a break. And I can remember him scoring a few winning tries for us, and
4 against Wakey.
yeah. I remember it was quicker than what it looked as well. I'm sure there was a certain game, and I'm sure he run round fullback. I can't remember which game it was.
I do remember, but I can't.
I don't know if it was Huddersfield, it might have been. I might be wrong. But again, then obviously you've got Michael Shenton that sort of got records for I think appearances for us. Might be top try scorer. I think he is. He's walked us out as a captain in Wembley twice and at Old Trafford. And Shenny were a little bit more quicker. Again, Shenny were a really good sort of defensive centre as well, wasn't he? But he were a bit quicker in attack with Shenny. And for me, these two guys were on the day. I think they were within a shout of being best centres in league for me personally.
Yeah. So they'd be your choices then, Tommo?
They would be my choices, mate. I don't know if you've got the same feeling towards him.
Do you know what, mate? As much as I've sung his praises, Michael Eager, I loved Michael Eager. you're absolutely spot on what you say. You need one solid defender and then one who can defend but can strike. So I'm definitely going to follow you there, mate, and not disagree with you and go with Shenton and Webster on this one.
I think Will Webster's sort of. I'm sure he was very close to retiring with Webber as well, and sort of how he, there were a lot of people again that were sort of, release him, his knees are gone and stuff like that, and then sort of fast forward a couple of years for him to sort of play the games that he did for us. I think were remarkable, really. I mean, there was, I'm sure it. Again, someone might prove me wrong here, but I'm sure, like with the pitch at Widnes, I don't think he played too many games at Widnes. I think that one fixture I was used to sort of leave him out for, really.
Because of the 3G pitch.
Yeah.
Be no good on our training pitch now, would he?
So then, Tommo, moving on to the playmakers.
Oh,
so, first and
ball,
foremost, number 6, standoff, halfback, whatever you want to call it, 5'8", as they call it in Australia, don't they? So, I think there's some.
Mate, this gets me going. Does this like?
It's a toughie, is this, mate? It's a toughie. I mean, for me, mate, your mate Ben Reynolds, you can't get far past him, can you, for that number 6 shirt? Maybe not so much at Cass, maybe at Lee, but not at Cass.
Maybe at Lee, yeah.
I'll make a start with a couple of names then, mate. So, Mitch Healy.
Mitch Healy, good shout.
Mitch Healy, mate. Mitch Healy, very, very good player. Came to replace my hero, so I didn't like him at the start. Came to replace Brad Davis. But he ended up playing more 6 than 7. The next gentleman I'm going to speak about ended up playing a lot more 7. Really, really good general, Mitch Healy. Really good experience, especially when he had a young captain like we had at the time. It was only 22, 23. Really good to have a halfback with him who could control the game. He could kick a 40-20 from anywhere. Obviously, 20 to 40. Not anywhere like you can these days. But he could have done. Really, really good playmaker. It's just a real shame that we got the back end of his career. But hopefully his son might play for us one day because he was born in Pontefract.
Yeah, good little play. Doesn't count on the quota, I'd like to believe. So.
No, it doesn't, mate. I don't believe he plays at the Warriors currently, doesn't he? Does Sam Healy? But
bench, shouldn't he?
Yeah, very, very good number 9. Very sharp. Obviously different to his dad because his dad played 6 and 7. But Mitch Healy been a really, really good player in the NRL at Cronulla. Came over with a big rap. Started pretty slow, like a lot of Australians do when they come over. It's a bit of a culture shock, but really grew into himself in the couple of years here at the club, and really helped us kick on in that the second season at the club in 2003 and reach those playoffs again after a couple of barren years. The next person who I just touched on was the captain at the time, Danny Orr. He ended up that 2003 season playing a lot more 7 than he did 6, and when he came back more as a 7, but initially started as a 6 or a hooker, to be perfectly honest, when he made his debut. But really, really solid captain of the club. A bit like Sheno that we touched on before, young for a captain, but really led from the front. Always good to give it to a local lad. His dad had played for the club. He obviously joined the coaching staff. He after he'd finished playing,
coached us for a few games as well.
He did. He did coach us for a few games and a couple of wins against Widnes and Hull when we were in a bit of a tough spot and we were really struggling. And relegation was a real threat. And steadied the ship, and the club was a bit all over at that time. Really, really good captain, good goal kicker.
Good defender as well, actually.
Really good defender. I was going to say, really good defender. I mean, Wigan were desperate to take him. I know, obviously, he had the link with Stuart Raper, which is why he ended up going over there. But, for a club like Wigan to, not want one of their own halfbacks, but, and let a couple of their younger kids go to bring in Danny Orr just obviously speaks volumes, doesn't it? Played for Great Britain whilst at Cass, played for England as well. Very deceptive sidestep on him. Like you say, he could defend, he could place kick, he could in-play kick. Really, really all good round player. And, probably one of the, we've produced loads of halfbacks over the years, and he was another one off the production line, wasn't he? In the Hardesty and and Hepworth mould, really, really solid, really good player. I'm sure there's a couple you want to talk about now, Tommo. A couple of imports.
Yeah. So again, if we start talking about halfbacks as an whole, or you sort of 6 and 7s and stuff. I think this is so many. Which one? What are we sort of categorising them here, if that makes sense?
Let's just go 6, and then we'll do 7 separate.
Right, we'll start with 6. Right, okay. So again, when Luke Dawn left the club in 2008, we signed a young sort of Kiwi guy, in you might know him, Rangi Chase.
I think I recall him, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, he were all right. He had he used to have like tram lines in his hair and stuff, like stars when he first joined and stuff like that. Yeah, again, I think he'd played not too many games at NRL, but I know he definitely played for St George. It won't like it was these days, were it? But sort of back then, you could just go on YouTube and sort of or watch games. There wasn't much footage to sort of have a look at these players, so they were coming over with a bit of sort of unknown. Quantity about him, you didn't really know too much, and I think he's sort of coming in. He played a bit of rucker, didn't he, in 2009?
Yes.
Did Rangi Chase, and still to this day, I've never seen things that he's done on a rugby field. Again, probably at times he was like the club captain. He was a leader, wasn't he? And
yep.
If you look at if you just go onto Super League website and you go from his try assist from sort of 2011 to 2012, and for a guy with him, that bear in mind, let's not sort of be disrespectful here, but the team he played in back there, especially sort of 11 were okay, but the sort of 2012 team were it was a bit of a team that had been put together, a bit of has-beens and players coming towards back end of the career, and the try and assist that he got, I've never seen anything like it for a team sort of that low down in league. It was crazy, wasn't it?
And it was Man of Steel.
Man of Steel as well. That just a little part I missed out there, right, in winning Man of Steel.
Our second Man of Steel, which we'll talk about the others, I'm sure. Yeah, really good player, mate. I've not seen a player like that for the club. I mean, people talk about, obviously, like we touched on before, Alan Hardesty and Keith Epworth. I'm old, but I ain't that old, so I've only seen them on video. And they had a bit of flair about them, especially for those days when it was played in winter, when it was a lot tougher. The grounds were tougher anyway. I'm not saying the game isn't any tougher now, but the grounds were tougher and harder to have that bit of flair and a bit of speed and sidestep. But Rangi Chase could do it all, mate. My always memory of Rangi Chase is obviously when he had that fantastic game against Bradford, but when he scored 4 tries. But my defining memory is when he came back the second time against Hull FC, and you could tell he'd not been training, he'd not been playing. He was a little bit, I mean, speak for myself. He was a little bit overweight, and he'd admit that himself. But you could still see the ability. He came on off the bench, and you could still see the ability, mate, and what he could bring to the team. He set up a couple of tries, and you were just like, oh my god, it was like the second coming again that he'd come back. It's very rare when you get excited for a player coming back because they've left for a valid reason, haven't they? But with someone like him, mate, it was definitely exciting times again in a tough season in 16, and he played a big part in us ending that season really strongly, leading into obviously 17, which was an amazing season, and unfortunately he couldn't see it out with us. But these things do happen, and I'm sure the next man you're going to mention took his place, didn't he?
Yeah, Benny Roberts. Again, another guy, signed from Melbourne Storm. I think he would describe as a bit of a rock and diamond sort of player over there, where when he's on, and when he's not on, you sort of, you just don't see him. He's like a bit of a missing action sort of player, really. But again, these sort of overseas players we've spoken about, and we're going to speak about more. One thing I think you can say about them all is they really took to Castleford. Rangi did exactly the same. Dawn did exactly the same.
Happy place, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I think they wore the shirt with a lot of pride. And again, I think Benny struggled, didn't he, when he first came? I think we had sort of Gale and Finn in the arse, and he was playing a bit of hooker and
a bit of Warden as well when he full back,
didn't he? He played all right in some of them games, but towards back end of the year, you were like, wow, we've got a bit of a player in his hands here. He was a really strong runner. Again, probably one of the best defenders I've ever seen as an halfback wearing a Castleford Tigers shirt. Rangy Chase, well, Rangy could whack players, couldn't he? But talking about sort of defensive and stuff like that, I think Benny will probably one of the best I've ever seen and stuff. But
Yeah.
just unfortunate with injuries. But what he could do, one of my favourite ever sort of games he played in was the St Helens Challenge Cup game. Came off the bench, I think, to replace Tom Holmes, and he just absolutely. I think we put 50 points on St Helens that day. It just absolutely tore him apart, didn't he? I don't know if you remember that game.
I do, mate. He loved playing against Saints. That last second drop goal.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
that were fantastic, mate. I've never been so excited in my entire life. I have. I was very excited that night. I remember the wife telling me to shut up. I was going, we've beat St Helens, because I've been working late and I couldn't make it, and I was like gutted. I was like, we beat St Helens, we beat them, because it was that long since we'd beaten them, and it was like a bit of a monkey on his back, where we'd not done that well against them for years, and we'd had a couple of draws against them in early Super League, but we'd always struggled against them. I think we're at home and we had a worse record away from home against them, but until recently we'd not won since till 22. We'd not won there since 1992. So obviously never in the Super League era. We have won there a few times now.
I think it was Powell's last year, wasn't it? 21 with Bet Saints, wasn't it?
21 is last year. I thought it was 22.
No, Radford 22.
What? 21 then, mate. Sorry, I apologise. But Craig Lingard got a win there as well. So we'll say that, mate. We like beating St Helens at St Helens there. So hopefully we'll beat them this Saturday. All being well.
That will be nice.
So yeah, mate. I think they're the four key candidates there. Who'll be your man?
Oh God, this is. I feel as though we should have done the halfbacks as like a big group, but you can't. For me, it's got to be Rangy, and it's got to be Rangy.
Got to be Rangy, mate. Man of Steel.
Like you said, mentioning Man of Steel, and sort of for them younger fans out there, the team we sort of had back then. I mean, 2011 we had an all right team, didn't we? We got to the semi-final at Challenge Cup, and I think did we just get shot that year playoffs? Did we have to beat OKR away last game of year?
We did.
I think we just narrowly lost that game, if memory recalls.
Yep, we did, mate. We did. We were very unlucky to lose it. So, but yeah.
Again, if you've got any spare time and you're into your stats and stuff, just go onto the Super League website. Just look how many tries and try assists he got within his period of it. Honestly, absolutely unbelievable.
Phenomenal, mate. And people were shaking their heads at him being given Man of Steel when he was in a team that didn't make the playoffs and was struggling.
Don't forget that.
Yeah, Roger
Chase.
So Rangy Chase locked in, mate. I think a lot of people would be, find that hard to disagree with that. So 7, mate. So I'm going to throw a couple of names out there that you'll probably remember, but probably not. So first one came back to the club at the same time as the second man I'm going to mention. As a number 7 to lead us round the park. Mick Morgan brought him back in 97 when we were struggling. Actually from Wakefield, he brought him back. But obviously he played for the club previously, and that's Mr. Michael Ford. Fantastic leader, a general again. Could move you around the field. He had a really, really good season in 98, and he scored the last point of 98 against London with a drop goal in the last seconds as the Hooter were going to sign off on a fantastic note in his Castleford career. He'd been absolutely phenomenal the first time at the club. Obviously pre-Super League, went down under to play with Darryl van der Velde at the Crushers and a couple other clubs. Came back, had a spell at Warrington, had a spell at Wakefield, and ended up coming back to the club to help us out in our leagues. We were really struggling for playmakers at the time, and did a fantastic job again at the club. You could see how much, even though he's a lad from Oldham, you could see, and Oldham's his club. You could see that how much Castleford meant to him as well, and what a great leader he was around the team. He'd help the young guys out as well around the club, I'm led to believe, and be a real role model and for the time when it was a heavy drinking culture, and playing. Obviously, we'd just come into the third season or the second season when he rejoined us. Of Super League in the summer era, and then played in the third season. He made the transition really well, and he looked every part of Super League player, and he probably could have played on for another couple of years in Super League, but you know, he got the chance to go be a player coach at Bramley, so left the club and then ended up at Oldham and nearly got him into Super League. Just missing out to witnessing the grand final, who ended up having a great time in Super League for that brief spell. The other man also came at the same time as Mr. Ford, and also from Wakefield. We raided them. That's what you get when they're in the Championship. You see, you can raid clubs like that. And that was Brad Davis. Really, really good player. A bit of a jack in the box. You know,
Smart player, wasn't he?
very, very smart player. But he did the basics right. He'd lead from the front because his work rate, his defence. He was okay in defence. He wasn't the best defensive half when he compared to someone like Ben Roberts at 6, but he was solid. He had a fantastic boot on him. He could kick goals. He was he loved a little run around, as a lot of halfbacks do.
Mackie used to love that as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, mate. He did, and you know what? Macca still does, and he watching him this year, and with Brad Davis, mate, the fact that again. He's another one we let go probably a bit early, but we replaced him with Mitch Healy, who did really well once he'd settled. But he came back to the club. He came back on the coaching staff and ended up being registered as a player. ended up. He'd been over it. He'd gone to Wakefield, left Wakefield, gone to France, to Villeneuve to coach. Came back to Cass as a coach. Ended up playing and ended up having anybody that's never watched it. Go watch the 2005. It'll be on YouTube. Go watch the 2005 and National League North, or whatever it was called, National League Grand Final, and just watch Brad Davis that day. He was phenomenal.
Were you
absolutely
there that day?
Phenomenal. I was there that day, mate.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal, and he immortalised himself that day. He literally, he'll tell you it was 100 metres, but it was only 40 metres that he ran. But that interception try that broke the game. When we were under the cosh a little bit, they'd had quite a few sets. We'd made some errors. We were winning the game, but obviously they were pegging us back. And they were a good team with Whitehaven. We'd already lost to them in that campaign at their place, which was always a tough place to go anyway, and not a very nice place to go
Well,
at times.
I've heard a bit of a story about that game, and again, I've just thrown allegedly's out there. During that game, again, that was 2005 at Widnes. I can remember it. If anyone watches the game, there's a period where allegedly Brad Davis gets bitten by a Whitehaven player.
Yes, because I remember it clearly. I remember my dad turning to me and going, "He's broke his arm. I'm like, no, he's having a great game.
Yeah,
we're going to lose it." Because he was holding his hand like that.
Yeah,
and it's like he's broke it, but yeah, he'd been bitten by Craig Calvert.
Well, allegedly.
Allegedly.
At the time, if you're watching the game, Whitehaven were having a bit of a roll on. Cass were the alleged rumours that's out there is it might have been a bit of a ploy to sort of stop the momentum of the game. But again, it's all allegedly out there, And
that just shows how wily he was, mate, as an halfback. He went to slow the game down and went to speed it up, and that's what you need from your playmaker.
Yeah.
So, you want to talk about a couple more, mate?
Yeah, so again, Luke Gale comes to your mind. No, in fact, I'm not going to start Luke Gale. Actually, I do apologise. I'm going to go back in time a little bit.
Ooh.
So then, 2006. We're struggling for halfbacks. We're struggling. We're not doing too bad. We're not at the bottom of the league, but there was some sort of strange rule at the time that Catalan couldn't be relegated and all this stuff. There were a young halfback at bit of a maverick. For whatever reason, he didn't play.
Blonde flashes in his hair.
Yeah, which set a bit of a trend as a young kid off. A lot of people getting that haircut.
Everyone in Cass had
it. Again, I've never seen a player come into a club and make that much of an impact straight away. You remember Westy? We might have been kicking off, first kick off the game, and no one ever does this now. An halfback could probably get hammered by his coach, but he'd do a short kick off, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Do a short kick off and you're like, oh my, he kicked 40-20s. It was just a player that just had a massive impact. If we'd have signed, again, I know it's all shoulda, woulda, coulda, but if we could have got him earlier on that year, I think we'd have probably stayed up in 2006.
I
it
agree.
was a pretty decent team, to be honest with you. A lot of, Danny Nutleys and sort of players like that were in there, and Danny Sculthorpe.
Yeah.
And then the 2007 year. I mean, I always remember him. Obviously, there's a bit of sort of story behind him about him. He wanted to stay at Cass, and his last resort were going to them lot that he signed for. And we'd already sort of spoke to Shifty Sherwin. But that game he played in 2007 at Edinley, where he was kicking 1-pointers, he just kicked him off part, didn't he? Did Bruffy that day? He was unbelievable. It was very sad. Probably the first player at Sporting Castle I was very sad to sort of see leave.
Yeah,
Bit
definitely.
heartbroken, really. You know, my favourite player. But again, defensively, he was very good as well, wasn't he? With Bruffy with that, and he was quick as well.
He was.
But he showed
He was
a lot
tough.
of loyalty to stay with Cass in 2007 when we sort of went down, didn't he?
He did, because he'll have had his suitors, mate. Maybe not so much as a starting halfback at some clubs, but probably 10 of the 12, 14 Super League clubs that probably fancied him. So, you know, as a player for him. So
Yeah, it's been
definitely.
nice to see him, hasn't it? The last couple of weeks as well, in and around the sort of coaching setup. I think that'd be nice to sort of see him there with his skills that he could pass on to a sort of academy. If you were an academy lad, there's no one else you'd sort of want to learn from, would there really?
That's it.
Again, sort of moving forward, and Luke Gale, funny enough, I can actually remember him playing 2007 for Doncaster when we were in Championship, and I think he'd been released from Leeds, and then he sort of went to London. He played with Dorney, didn't he? They had a bit of a good sort of setup down there, didn't they, back then? I know things have changed again down there now, but he always did all right. Again, that were a really struggling team that Bradford had. They had no forwards or anything like that. They were,
which were unusual for them.
Which were
in Super League.
unusual. I think they were sort of running out of money, weren't they, then? And but Gailey always had a bit of a thing about it. I could never understand why no one else sort of took a punt on him. For a lot of these bigger clubs to sort of wait until sort of Cass picks him up, and then they try and come in for him sort of after that. But again, I was quite excited when we signed him. I think LSC were heavily linked with him and signing him at the time. And
they obviously took Sneed. Obviously, he wasn't our player. He was at Salford, wasn't he? He was on loan. He'd had a good season with us. He was in the running for, Man of Steel until the back end, and the Goldthorpe medal until the back end of the season, when another one of our players won it. But, as far as I'm led to believe, I don't know how true it is, they always wanted Luke Gale, did Powell and Sheridan and Danny Orr. They always wanted Luke Gale above Sneed, and they tried to get in the year before when we got Sneed. But obviously, he wanted to stay at Bradford and try and keep him up if he could, and Honorix, who he had mates there. Obviously, as you always do at every club, and he wanted to work with his mates. But the fact that they were heading down, he were out of contract. We managed to get him a year later, and what a player he became. People call him, arrogant and stuff on the field, but that's your old school halfback.
Yeah, that's what you kind of want, don't you? A bit of arrogance and swagger about him, don't you?
You do. You definitely do. So, I think we got some good candidates again there, mate.
Yep. Again, it's difficult, isn't it?
It is.
But you got to go with Gailey, I think, can't you?
You have, mate. Man of Steel. You've got to have Man of Steel in there, mate.
And
two halfbacks, Man of Steel.
I've got a funny story to tell you about Luke Gale, actually. Back in my sort of...
Is it parental?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, this was sort of in Escape. What year? This was in about 2016, I think. Can be queuing up for a taxi, and there was a long queue back then. I think it was a bank holiday, and he was there with all his mates, and I was with a couple of my mates, and I actually stole his taxi. Actually, I got in his taxi, what it is, and
we gone down well.
Yeah, it didn't go down very well. I think he started telling me that it was his taxi, but it was too late, mate. I'd already closed the door on his taxi.
You've been a marked man then, mate. Every time he threw that ball into a crowd, he was aiming for you.
Oh, dear. It probably comes top as Gailey, to be fair.
He does, mate. Also, came back after 2 weeks on his deathbed, mate, to beat St. Helens in that semi-final, mate.
Yeah, there were a lot of rumours he wasn't going to play. There
was.
But to sort of come up with the performance that he did under the circumstances, it was quite phenomenal, really, wasn't it?
Yep, definitely, mate. Definitely. And again, beating St. Helens, you can't beat it.
No.
So then, mate, moving on to props.
Oh.
The engine room.
Oh God, God, there's again. Uh, Going back to sort of your time, and you can sort of
My
start us off
time.
with your time, you know. With some,
Back in my day.
I can't really remember watching him, but yeah, I'm sure. I mean, actually, I can remember him sort of coming back and out. Did he come out of retirement? I think Samson. I don't know what year it was.
He did. He did and scored a try against Warrington.
Oh, yeah, I'll sort of let you start with us, mate.
Yeah.
You're more knowledgeable within the sort of early years than me.
So yeah, mate, absolutely. You just mentioned there, mate, absolute club legend. Obviously played the most majority of his rugby pre-Super League, but still had, the first 6-7 years in Super League with us. Then came back out of retirement when we were in his hour of need again. Dean Sampson, absolute animal on the pitch. You just knew you were going to get Sunday. Again, he's not like your forwards now that that are big guys, especially like your people that come over now, like your Magos, your Lazarus, people like that are huge guys and have, big wingspans and, big hands, big legs. Dino, you know, whilst he were over 6 foot, he didn't look the biggest of guys. I mean, he did when he stood next to him, but on the pitch he didn't, compared to some forwards back then, especially some of the Aussies that started coming over, but in the Kiwis. But he would run at 100 mile an hour. He was hard as nails, mate. I always remember when we played Lee, sorry, I'm thinking Lee because he's coach of them now. When we played at Wigan, and we were losing the game, and Adrian Lamb was having an absolute stormer against us. And as naughty as it is, he took one for the team, and he absolutely flattened him and took him out of the game, and we ended up drawing with them, which, you can laugh about it now, but at the time it was obviously quite controversial and he got a lengthy ban from it. But, that's what forwards were like in those days. He'd been an old school forward. He was tough. He was uncompromising.
Very direct, wasn't he? What I can sort of remember from
Very
him.
direct, probably one of the first ones to, of that Super League era to have a chant really with Dino. When he came on, if he were on the bench, mate, and he came on, you knew what was going to happen. First drive, mate, he were either going to knock somebody over or he were going to get you over halfway if you were struggling. He was just that, that kind of player. He loved to try as well for a prop, which is a rare commodity, isn't it, these days? Especially when they do so much work in the engine room. Hat-trick at St Helens in 98 when we drew with him 32 apiece. Hat-trick at Huddersfield, I think, when they were Huddersfield-Sheffield a couple of years later. Love to try, like I say, he scored a try on that return game against Warrington in the corner of all places as well. Why would a prop forward be scoring a try on wing? But yeah, really, really good club man. Obviously haven't seen much of him in recent years for one reason or another. But he's still knocking around the area, Stanley and Cass.
I think he
and all
actually
that
joined
area.
a bit of did he join the coaching staff for a
He
period?
did. He did. That's when
he
he came out of retirement. Yeah. Obviously, his dad had been coach at the club as well, and his dad brought him through pre-Super League. But during the Super League era, mate, there were you had tough props. You had Brian McDermott, Barry McDermott, Terry O'Connor, Neil Cowie. Obviously, Bradford had some monsters in Anderson, Vagana, and he could stand up to all of those, mate, and hold his own. And it wouldn't take a backward step. He wouldn't look at these names and go, you might be bigger than me, but I'm still having you. and that's what you want from your middles. Next one I'm going to speak about, mate, is one you just mentioned briefly before, Danny Nutley. Only had 1 year at the club, unfortunately, but what a year he had at the club.
State of Origin year before we played him, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Queensland?
He did. He'd been over here before at Warrington.
Yeah.
Gone back home, gone to Cronulla, and had an absolute storming time at Cronulla. And I still don't know to this day how we managed to get him. It must have been the Terry Matteson pull.
I think we had a manager at the time, didn't we? General manager called Mick Robinson, was it? That recruited a lot of these Australian guys, I think.
He did. And it was phenomenal that year. Really led from the front. And we were absolutely flying again. And like you say, we'd have probably, especially when Brough came in, we'd have probably stayed up. And I think that didn't help the fact that he said he were going home. That really didn't help us. We seemed to take a bit of we beat Leeds, and then he'd announced that, and we went on a bit of a run there where we just couldn't get a win. So we really struggled on that, but he was a really good leader.
Played very big minutes as well, didn't he?
Massive minutes, mate. He'd play 80 minutes sometimes. Absolutely huge in the engine room. He'd just run all day. He'd tackle all day. He'd guide his men around the pitch. He'd some of the younger lads that were coming through.
Got
He'd say,
captaincy as well, didn't he?
yeah, he did, mate. Or some of the other lads, that were playing Super League for the first time, like Tommy Hockey, people like that, and until they were released, Matt Whitaker, people like that. Even like Sculthorpe learnt a lot from him. He'd said, and Richie Fioso and people like that had not played a lot of Super League or played a lot of first grade in Australia or in the Championship, and you could see him just guiding them around the pitch all the time. A real leader on that. So, mate, a couple from yourself.
Couple from myself. Again, sort of 2 spells with us, but I can remember him sort of his first time round and what he sort of did. Again, in his Super League career is Andy Lynch. What a professional.
Great
He
man.
was a very fit player, could play 80 minutes, leader. I think he was captain at Bradford, captain at Hull FC. I might be wrong on that, but I think he was. Could play a little bit as well, actually, could Lynchy.
Good.
Again, I know sort of lads that have played with him, and they just said the standards that he was driving on a daily basis within training was just sort of like always calling people out. He could do more, could be fitter. I think even his late 30s, he was sort of still playing squash to keep fit and stuff like that. He was a very good player, wasn't he? Someone that you could probably learn a lot from. There are a bit of eyebrows raised when we signed him on his second spell. I think he was about 33, but again, he still took us to a grand final, didn't he, that year?
And Wembley, year before.
Wembley in 2014.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, he probably raised the game sort of Milo and Lynch as well. Not Lynch, Craig Hubie, sorry. They had a bit of a sort of good partnership going there, didn't they?
They did. They certainly did, mate.
And then
next
the
man.
guy, my probably all-time favourite player, probably Grant Millerton.
Phenomenal.
For them people that sort of can't really remember him when he first joined the club, again, there were a bit of... He'd sort of joined mid-season.
He's a back row as well.
As a back rower, yeah. He always remember him. If you remember the Featherstone game that we lost in Challenge Cup, he wasn't just the only one, but a lot of people were sort of saying, what have we signed here? He just, again, got to show you these guys need sort of time to settle in, but
they do.
What a player he turned out to be. A guy that could play back row, played a bit of loose forward, played prop forward. He even played half back, didn't he? I was running the Magic Weekend game at Wakefield away. What a skillful player he was. Like they always say, he was an half-back in a prop's body, wasn't he?
He was. And held together like Mr. Bump with loads of tape.
Yeah, it was just... like I said, like I spoke about earlier as well, you talk about these overseas guys and sort of maybe even not knowing too much about Castleford, but I always thought he sort of took to the town really well, took to the club really well, wore the shirt with a lot of pride, and again, you'd kill for a team of sort of Grant Millertons, wouldn't you? And what he achieved and stuff like that, it was. I think even his last year, he were a bit like you mentioned there, Westy. He had a lot of bandages on and stuff, and he actually was. He didn't play too many games in 21, and then but he was still. I think Powell had him wearing the sort of trainer t-shirts, and he was running out when we conceded a try, and he was talking with the players behind the sticks and stuff like that. And it just goes to show you sort of how much people thought about him and stuff, really.
Yeah, phenomenal, mate, and not many in this modern age, probably pre-Super League, but in the Super League era, not many Australians stay for as long as he did. He loved it. I'm sure he had offers from other clubs. I'm sure he had offers from down under. But he were phenomenal, and a bit like Dean Sampson, he loved a different hairstyle. So who are you going with then, Tommo?
Again, there's probably more players, haven't we? We've sort of missed out on
likely.
stuff like that.
Michael Korkidis.
I mean, Danny Sculthorpe again, another Matt Leaffer. But yeah, you probably have to go. You have to go with. You have to go with Milo, wouldn't you? I think.
Milo. And who's your second?
We've not even mentioned Craig Hubie, have we?
We haven't, mate. Really.
I'll let you can answer the second one, mate. I've gone with
Oh, so
Miller.
I'm having one and you're having one, are you?
Yeah.
Now, if we were doing a bench, mate, Andy Lynch should be on my bench because he's very, very close for me, is this, but I'm going to have to go with Dean Sampson, mate. Two tough, uncompromising props there in him and Miller.
Yep, I like it, mate. I like it.
Like it. So then, Tommo, hookers. Number
Hookers.
9,
Number 9.
Riggs,
Yep.
whatever you want to call it. We've had a
Yeah.
few, mate. We've had some really good
We've had-
hookers. We've been quite
Yeah.
blessed, to be fair.
We've been certainly blessed at this club to have a lot of good hookers, haven't we?
We certainly have, mate. We certainly have. I mean, I'll start with a couple. I'll just throw a couple of names out there. Start Super League, Richard Russell. Obviously, his lads made a career for himself at Huddersfield and Wakey since. More of an halfback, his lad, but Richard Russell, very, very good player, another Oldham lad. Very, very good player. Bit of an old school looker, very crafty, but also could tackle, and defend. Quick off the mark as well, but obviously we're coming to the back end of his career at the start of Super League. Left us in '98 to go join Mike Ford at Bramley, if I recall. Then went on to Oldham and obviously sired a son. And then the man who replaced him in '99, the coach's brother, Aaron Raper. He did look like the lead singer of Aqua. With his Baldy Head and the Baldy Man Club, as we had at the time, with him and Nathan Sykes and Adrian Vowles and a couple of others as well, James Pickering. But fantastic hooker. He played for Australia at the World Cup. He played State of Origin. We pretty much got him because Stu Raper, his brother, was the coach, but he was a very, very good hooker, mate. He was very more of a whereas Richard Russell was more of an old school hooker, he was more of a modern hooker that you'd class today, one of the first modern hookers. Really good, really good ball in hand. Knew when to, same as a halfback would, mate. He was kind of a halfback in a hooker's body. He could slow the game down. We kick to the corner. He could put in a 40-20. He was a good defender. He was quick off the mark. And an all-round nice guy as well. Really, really nice guy and a good clubman. We had him for, a number of years, 3 or 4 years. And again, you don't get many that stay for that long, especially when, he joined the club and he was at his, at his peak of his career. And then another one I'm going to throw in there, mate. You'll probably remember this one more than the last two.
Can I guess the initials first?
Go on.
WB.
WB. Warren Burton, mate. Yeah, very good player, Warren Burton. No. Wayne Bartram, mate. Wayne Bartram. Again, only had him for a couple of years, mate, but very, very good hooker.
As well, didn't he?
He played State of Origin, mate. He'd also played for Australia as well at the '94 World Cup in the same team as Aaron Raper, even though Andrew Johns was the hooker. So work that one out, but there you go. Very for him in that tournament. But he had played a couple of games, same as Raper in the tours before, in the lead up games and a couple of the lesser group games at the cup. Really, really good hooker.
Tough
Played
player,
at 13 as well. Very tough player. Fantastic goal kicker, mate.
Yeah.
Everyone will remember. It was a bit weird at St George at the time because they had him and they had the one Mark Riddell that went to Wigan, and they were both goal kicking hookers, which is a bit unusual, isn't it? In the same team anyway. You normally get one or the other, but he also helped bring on Wayne Godwin as well. And helped him to take over his role a couple of years later, and he was a goal kicker as well, which ironically, but very, very good player, Wayne Bartram. Again, looked like he was running in cement, but he was quicker than what you thought he was. He was very, very sharp. What he probably lacked in speed is what I mean. He made up for it in smarts, in rugby smarts and a rugby IQ. Very, very good player. And you could see, shame we got him at the back end of his career again, but you could see why he had played State of Origin and for Australia.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really remember him. Did he once kick like a conversion or a penalty from near the halfway line once? Did
Yeah,
Martin?
it's again. Go check it out on YouTube. It was against Bradford, I believe, if I recall. It was either Bradford or Salford. I can't remember which one it was, but I do remember it going over, and everyone's going, "Oh, he's never going to kick this. Never going to kick this." It's one of his first games, and he does. He kicks it
Yeah,
pretty
there's
easy as well.
like you sort of spoke about before. There's been a lot of good players in that position, aren't there, that you've sort of remembered that I can very sort of vaguely remember. Ryan Hudson obviously played a little bit there, didn't he? And then
He did.
fast forwarding, I always remember his debut 2011 at Huddersfield, Darrell Clark.
Yep.
That's when sort of we had an abundance of academy lads sort of coming through, and yeah, I always remember Darrell Clark. He was just such that little step he used to do that he had, and what a player he turned out to be. Again, another Man of Steel winner that he was.
Yep.
Him and Adam Milner at the time sort of shared the hooking role, don't they? Which
It
is
is.
you couldn't imagine that now, could you? In
No.
modern sort of Super League with two young nines coming through the same academy. I think they were similar age. I've been
Yeah.
a year or so difference.
Yeah. A couple of years between them. Yeah.
But yeah, again, what a player. When there were sort of rumours that we were sort of selling him to Warrington due to financial sort of difficulties at the time, he's just absolutely good.
Yeah.
When you lose these players, but especially when they're academy lads that you've sort of nurtured and you brought them through, you put time into them and stuff. It's devastating to lose them. But look at career he's had. There's not many players that leave Cast and have a good career, really.
Not many, no.
That sort of leave us and they've gone on to do much stuff. But he's definitely one of them you put on there. Challenge Cup winner, I'm led to believe.
Yeah,
Warrington.
Challenge Cup winner with Warrington.
Challenge Cup winner. Obviously, he's been there at St Helens now, and he's still doing a really good job, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, there's been some top play again, and then you fast forward a couple of years, you're thinking, how we're going to sort of replace him, Clarkey, and then we brought in a Paul McShane, who at the time I were a lot of people probably laugh at this, but I was a big Scott Moore fan. I really liked Scott Moore. He was a guy that made it. You're laughing now, but again, he was a guy that
He was solid. He was solid.
he made his debut at 16-year-old in
He did.
a Wigan Saints derby.
Yeah.
At the time where they had Kieran Cunningham, James Roby, and then he
Yeah.
actually went to Cowboys. I don't know how many games he played for Cowboys, but then he played in Huddersfield under Nathan Brown and stuff. But again,
Yeah.
he
He
had
was
a
solid.
bit of
He was
he had a
solid.
bit of a character, wasn't he? But
He was.
Paul McShane, I always remember I was playing five-a-side football with work lads, and I'd come out to my car and it'd come up on my phone. And I was a bit, what was signing Paul McShane for? I never sort of saw anything from him. He had a couple of loan spells. I think he'd been at Widnes, he'd been at Hull FC, he'd been at
Yeah.
Rhinos. It might have gone to Crusaders on loan. I might be wrong.
I think he did. Yeah, I think he played a couple for him.
But yeah, he never really sort of put his stamp, did he, on being a first team sort of. And then he obviously went to that Wakefield, and they didn't really do. I think he was actually close to retiring, actually. And
I think he was going to drop down, wanted to Championship and play part time because he's a joiner or a plumber, isn't he, by trade.
And then again, another Man of Steel winner. So how we're going to decide out of them what we've mentioned, mate? I don't know.
Oh, mate, I mean, they're all class in their own right, mate.
Different profile of rookers as well, aren't
Different
they?
profile. If we had a bench, mate, I'm going to do it again. If we had a bench, I'd put Darrell Clark on the bench because Darrell Clark could come on, mate, and he could probably even put him in at 13 and he'd run riot. But I've got to go Macca, mate. Macca, club captain for a number of years, fantastic leader on the pitch, so crafty. We're talking about old school lookers in Richard Russell, Paul McShane, the other three, probably Bartram, Raper, Clark were more your modern hooker, whereas McShane were really old school, and he's still doing it, mate. He's still doing it to a really good level, and he's helped York this year, prove a lot of people wrong.
Playing in the halves as well. He was always a good player in halves as well, wasn't he?
He was. Who are you going for, mate?
I think just because probably more so the team he were playing in, it were a lot better system then and a lot better team. Obviously, again, like you mentioned about Darrell Clark on bench, Clark didn't play as good as the team. It wasn't even up until sort of 14 that what best team he'd played in. He'd played under obviously Matteson and Millward and stuff.
You could still see the shoots, couldn't you? But
yeah,
you knew you had something on your hands.
More complete player. You'd have to go with Macca, wouldn't you? For how many years he did it, yeah, you'd have to probably go with Macca, I think, wouldn't you?
Definitely, mate. We agree on that.
Yeah.
Good stuff, mate. So 2 more positions then, mate. So starting with back row, second row,
Couple
wide
of decent,
receiver.
yeah, there's a couple of decent candidates for this one as well. Again, you mentioned earlier about Michael Eager and the sort of Australian connection that they had there, where I can very sort of remember his last couple of years, probably his last year, 2003, I
Yeah.
think it was. Dale Fritz, what a sort of hard hitting player he was.
Oh,
If
again,
you
not the
saw,
biggest of blokes,
not
not
the
the biggest of
biggest,
blokes at all. Only about 5'9", 5'10", but could when he hit you, mate.
did
Obviously,
he
I've never
hit
been
you?
hit by him, but when you saw him hit somebody, thankfully I haven't, mate. I probably wouldn't have made it past my teens if that were the case. But when he hit somebody, they didn't get up.
Yeah.
When he wanted to hit somebody, he was hard as nails, mate. He'd actually started life as a halfback at Perth Reds, Western Reds, and ended up moving into the centres and then moving into the back row before we signed him. He'd had a really good game, a couple of good games in the extended World Club Challenge they had in '97, and we Raper had been keeping tabs on him for a couple of years, and then thankfully because Perth Reds went out of existence, it was the perfect time to get him to come over, mate. And again, stayed '99 all the way to 2003, so 4 or 5 years at the club. Really, really good player. Like we say, hard as nails. Made probably Michael Eager. I mean, whilst he were a great defender, Michael Eager, he probably made Michael Eager look a better defender than what he was as well. Especially because he'd be low, Eager would be high. And who can forget, again, go watch YouTube if you've never seen it, Cast fans, who can forget that fantastic try? He hadn't scored a try, I think, in 7 years, even playing down under, or it was something crazy like between 7 and 5 and 7 years. And his first try for us was the winning try against Leeds in the
Yeah,
playoff
crazy.
eliminator, and he took it from acting half as well,
On left hand
which
side,
were
I think, wasn't it?
yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I remember being in that away end at Leeds that day, mate, and just going absolutely wild.
Were it tops
That
off?
tops off, mate, tops off. Not that anybody want to see that, but yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. Yeah, I mean, another bloke talking to tops off, mate. It came off at Wembley in 2014 when he scored in Oggy Holmes.
Wow. Yeah, again, we sort of talk about different profile, and they're very similar profiles. I'm led to believe Dale Fritz, from what I remember, and Ollie Holmes. Not the biggest of players, but if you listen to players that played with them or played against them, speak very highly of both of them. Both very hard hitting. I can always remember sort of Jesse Senelafeo saying that Oggy was one of the hardest hitters in training. Punched way above his weight, pound for pound. I think even Ben Roberts sort of said the same. Quite quick for a back rower.
A lot of
Few
tries for
tries,
that
like
rower.
his tries that he took. I can remember him scoring a good one at Wakefield away, 2012.
Yeah.
Again, a sort of cast lad, normie lad, whatever you want to call it, come through the academy sort of setup. Made his debut 2009 or something like that. I think it was
Yeah,
around about that time.
2008, 2009. Yeah,
Round
when
about
like you
then.
say, a few were coming through. Him, Milner, Arundel, quite a few were coming through at the
Yeah,
time, weren't there?
Jordan Thompson, and
John
I
Thompson.
think
Yeah,
as obviously the club meant a lot to him. I think he was probably part of the leadership group for towards back end of his career. Very sort of sad to see him
yeah,
leave the club, but again, whatever you want to say about him, he did go on to win a Challenge Cup. So
he did, and he could
we,
still be playing. It's just a shame that he had to retire. I mean, he's only just turned 34, so he could still be playing. To be perfectly honest,
I think
so
there were a lot of rumours whilst he was actually at the club that he was going to have to retire because his knees were that bad. But similar to Jake Webster, sort of seemed to overcome them, didn't he?
he did, and he got to play in a grand final and a couple of Challenge Cups as well,
Yeah.
which is great. Another one, mate, that's someone that we don't really mention that much.
The
But
big
absolutely,
panda.
no. Well,
No.
there's Big Panda, mate. But I'm thinking of someone else, mate, that you will remember.
Frankie
Dean.
Mariano.
No, not Big
Oh no.
Frankie, mate. Dean Widders.
Dean Withers. Oh yeah, good shout. Now that is a shout. If I'd have watched his podcast back and like remembered that we're not meant remembered Dean Withers, we'd have to record it again. I think.
Mate, he don't go that far on his holidays.
Oh God, I don't
When
know
he
if
went
that's still on YouTube, but the interception, Bradford away, 2009, I think it was.
9, yeah, 9 or 10.
Basically, it didn't look like a rugby player, did he? Without
No,
sort of being too disrespectful, but God, he could play it again. If you just look at him on Google, that guy actually played halfback for us as well for a
he
few
did.
games, didn't he?
He did. I remember first game of 2010. We beat Leeds at Edinley, which is at that time it's obviously become more of a norm under the Powell reign in Super League, and we've got a pretty decent record now against them. But very rare when we beat them
It
back
were
then at
unheard of, wasn't
Edinley.
it, that?
Very unheard of, and I remember him scoring winning try in just a mud bath at Edinley when pitch used to be horrendous there, and it was a prop when they used to park cars on it when they had cricket in off season. Absolute mud bath, and he scored a right try. And I remember because I'd gone with my wife, who now my wife, but she wasn't at the time. She obviously knew I'd been with her a year or whatever, and we'd gone to the game, and she's like, "Oh, I get free tickets from work and all that, but we can't stand in Cass End." I says, "I'm standing in Cass End." I says, "You can stand in Rhino's End, but I'm standing in Cass End." But I convinced her to be a Cass fan that night, mate, and she's been a Cass fan ever since. So he must have done something right, Dean Widders, with that try.
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
again, he were a good player, wasn't he? And
Well,
he scored a very good winning try at Wakefield away, 2011 to win game. I think we're literally
yeah,
a
he did.
minute to go. I think
He
Rangi
did.
gave him a long pass across field, left hand side, and he scored. And yeah, again, he were a very good player, wasn't he? But come to think of it now, even go back a little bit further, the sort of career that he had and the impact he had. I think he was only with us for a year, but Willie Manu, what a
Yeah,
player he was, wasn't
very
he? He
good
was
player.
unbelievable.
Fayoso as well, mate.
Yeah, two
Played a lot
very
of
good
second
players,
row.
weren't they?
There were we had a very good team then, mate. But like you say, and going back, if we'd have had that halfback for longer, that actual halfback, instead of trying to persevere with Peter Lupton on his own, even though he was a good player, Peter Lupton on his
Even Brad
own.
Davis played a bit at halfback, didn't
Yeah,
he, that year, so at the start.
if we'd have had Brough all year, mate, or most longer than what we had, we'd have probably stayed up with that team and built a good team under Matteson there. I mean, he did obviously rebuild the team a couple of times, but really good. I mean, another man that's still doing it has moved into the front row now. Unfortunately, still doing it at our rivals down the road, but had a fantastic time at the club. Played for England whilst he was at the club as well. Was Mike McMeekan?
Yeah, again, sort of similar situation to Dennis Solomona. Played in that sort of team at London that were put together sort of last minute. A lot of homegrown players in there, weren't there, and some
Yeah,
sort of journeyman Australians and stuff like that coming towards the back end of their career. Again, fortunate at the time with a coach that could sort of pick a player up that were maybe a 5, 6, 7 out of 10 and turn him into an 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of ability, how he could work with him and improve him. And I always remember him, Big Mike, he were a bit of a back row, but he played a bit of centre. He played a bit of centre at Cass as well, didn't he?
yeah,
A
he did.
couple of
Yeah,
times and stuff. I think 6'4", 6'3", 6'4" guy, and you could see he was raw, but there was something there.
yeah,
And again, the coach at the time, he sort of worked with him a lot and improved him and turned him from what he was. In fact, I can't actually remember 2015 when we signed him. I think he broke his leg or he had a bit of a bad injury.
mm.
And I always remember listening to him, and he basically said that he felt as though he were a bit off physically or a bit of the speed, and he just bulked up. If you remember, he just bulked up massively, didn't he, in
He
terms of
did. He
muscle
was
mass
quite a
that he had. And
beanpole when we signed him, and he'd really, like you say, he'd worked on his muscle mass, hadn't he? And you could see he'd grown up, in no time whatsoever. And it just shows what you can do if you put your mind to it, really.
yeah, he were him and obviously a player we sort of brought up earlier, the big panda Junior Moores. I mean, what you sort of give to have them two sort of is an halfback hitting them on a short ball. Now
Yeah,
it's again you had Ollie Holmes, Mike, and Junior Moores that played a bit of. He played a bit in middle, didn't he, the junior?
yeah,
But
it is.
what a skillful player! I always remember one of my favourite
Really good.
tries were Warrington when we played them in the Magic Weekend, where we had a scrum.
Yes,
And I've led to believe Junior got the ball. Did he pass it to Luke Dawn there on
he
sort
did. It,
of
it
on
was
the
similar
out?
to that Leeds try we spoke about earlier, where he stormed through and then little because it was same season, little um offload out the back, and then he were round and under sticks, mate, and You know, they had a really good link, those two. They were like, they always talk about Kieran Cunningham, don't they, and James Roby being truck and trailer, but they were definitely, you know, our version of truck and trailer, albeit two different positions, not like those two were the same, but, you know, they were definitely our truck and trailer, those two at that time. I mean, another man from that era, mate, that came over with a little bit of a reputation, but had not consistently played in the NRL. He'd had a handful of games, but Jesse Senilafeo, mate. I mean, he was
Yeah.
a absolute breath of fresh air when he came in 17. I mean, that season he was just unplayable at times in that back row. I mean, that try against Wigan where he just brushes off a big guy like Tautai, you know, straight after half time to pretty much get us on his way to win at Wigan for the first time in a long time. Funny that because we've won there for the first time since then this year as well, haven't we? That was the last time we won there. Oh no, we won a couple of years after, didn't we? I think. But you know that game, and then I always remember that game against Lee on that where we had that double bank holiday
Yeah,
weekend,
I remember
didn't
that.
we? Yeah, because of the World Cup, and you know we had to play on a Monday again, a Friday and a Monday, and we took Lee apart, and you know I remember he put a kick in on the wing. Gale picked it up, little run around, Jesse on his back under sticks, and in air like he did with celebration, with ball in his wrist like that, and you know, absolute great character, mate. Great character.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
just chuckling to myself here about that game because I always remember it. I want to give a bit of a shout out to my mate here, Ozzy. He'd had this sort of banged out sort of Renault convertible. It was. You know, he happily had a girlfriend at the time, and I was sort of in my single days going out drinking, and I actually planned on going out drinking after the game. And after the game ended, we went to go start his car up to drive home, and the game would start. So it was all the referees and all the players are going home. We're still sat in Lee car park.
didn't Derek give you a lift home?
No, Degs didn't give us a lift home, mate.
Oh,
No.
Degsy, mate, Degsy. Call you son of rugby league, man. And I think the only other one as well, mate. I mean, again, it's a position where we've been quite lucky with back row. It'd be Lee Harland.
Yeah.
Another one you'll probably remember him at the back end of his career. You'll probably remember him playing against us for Doncaster.
Yeah.
When we were in the National League. But yeah, another good club man. Joined the club prior to Super League. Had a pretty decent career with us. No airs, no graces. Did his job, and that's what you need sometimes. He'd run hard. He'd sometimes play at hooker if we needed, especially in '98 when we had a bit of an hooker crisis. When we seemed to go through, I mean, we've gone through a lot of hookers this year. That year we seemed everyone played hooker. I think Stuart Raper played hooker at one bit as well. It seemed to feel like it, mate. No, Stuart, his brother.
Really?
No. No, I think Dean Sampson did though. But yeah, probably Valsey did as well. But yeah, you know, again, they called him hatchet for a reason, mate, because he could hit hard, and he was like a hatchet when he hit. So some good choices there, mate. Who'd be your two?
I think I'd go with Ollie Holmes and Dale Fritz, I think.
And do you know what, mate? I'd absolutely agree with you again.
Oh, nice one, mate.
No, we're not doing right well with this top trumps, are we?
No.
we got a good eye for a player, mate. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then finally, the man who locks it all together, number 13, mate.
13.
It's a bit harder 13 for me because whilst we've had good 13s in isolation, because of the modern era, a lot of people that play at 13 for probably the last 15, maybe 20 years haven't actually been a 13, have they? They've been more of a
lot of
third
teams
prop.
utilise extra prop forward there, don't they?
They do, and we've done it a number of times. Obviously, Stimo plays prop, but he can also play out of 13 as well. He's a bit of an hybrid, isn't he? But I think there's a number, mate. I mean, there's one obviously still at the club at the minute, which is unfortunately not got much game time this year due to injury. But Joe Westerman, you know, he's obviously started to get to the end of his career. And, you know, shame that we got him back as late as we did in his career, especially after he started with us. But, you know, when he first came back, you could see what a talent he was, mate. And again, we're talking about old school players. He was an old school out and out 13. You've got to be able to do a bit of ball handling. You've got to be tough as teak when you're tackling. You've got to be able to drive the ball up. You've got to play make. you've got to move your forwards round. You're kind of like your 9 and your 13 are like your 6 and your 7 in your forwards, really, aren't they? So you know, you need to be able to move your pack around. So, and he can do that. Can Westerman on his day. You know, it's just a shame that he hasn't been able to play as much this year. But you know, probably what probably obviously we don't know, but it probably will be his final year at the club. You know, it's a real shame that he's not been able to play as much. But again, been a great servant to the game and been a great servant to the club. You know, he'll probably admit himself he could have been. You know, he could have played NRL. You know, he could have
Played more
played.
times for England as well, couldn't he?
He could have done. He could have done, but unfortunately, he's played in a time where, you know, that role hasn't really been a 13. It has been an extra forward, and I think that's gone against him a lot of the time, and he's ended up in the back row at prop because of that, hasn't he? So he's definitely one, mate. Another one, Man of Steel. Our first Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Our first Man of Steel. Just gone back home after a visit to castmate, Mr. Vowles. Very, very good leader. Came over. Didn't hit, again, talking about imports, mate. Didn't hit the ground running.
Actually got chased to his car, didn't he? People telling him he wasn't good enough and stuff like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did, mate, quite a lot of the time, mate. Yeah, you know, he'd get booed and stuff when he were on the ball. I mean, he came over and we put him in at 6, and you could tell, you know, from what I can remember, mate, obviously a long time ago now, 97, but, you know, you could tell he wasn't a 6. I know he played a bit down there with North Queensland Cowboys. He played mainly in the centres. He definitely wanted a 6, and we brought him in as a 6. And, you know, it was a real shame that, we tried to until Brad Davis and Mike Ford came in, like I spoke about previously, and we moved him to the centres then. He started to pick up form. You could see, you know, Stuart Raper always says, and I think Valsey said as well, you know, from that pre-season, 97 into 98, he really stood up. We'd given him the 13 shirt. He wanted him to play loose forward. He'd led everywhere in fitness tests. He'd led in everything. He'd got himself in the right place. He'd got the right mindset, and he became a real leader from that point. You could see signs of it at the back end of 97 when Raper came in and he'd settled in a little bit. But he played a lot of centre in 98. Then he moved to loose forward full time. And wow, mate, hit up king. You know, if he had stats back then, mate, for hit ups in a game, my God, mate, they'd be off the charts. You know, even like we talk about Dale Fritz, you know, I know Super League, Man of Steel Awards, they always have the Hitman of the Year award or whatever, don't they, for top tackler. If they had that back then and they had the stats back then, mate, you know, Fritz would be up there, Vals would be up there, mate, Eager would be up there. All three in that team would be probably 1, 2, and 3 in the, you know, in the Hitman, you know, parade. Absolutely hard as nails, but an absolute gentleman. You know, it's quite funny because it's a shame I couldn't get across to see the evening with him, mate, because I always have to laugh because we're talking about Dean Sampson before. So my sister had won a competition to have she designed a kit or something for the club back in 2002 or 2001. And she won, and she got she only little at the time, she won, and she got the opportunity to have a picture taken with one of the players in the lounge at the time, and she wanted Dean Sampson. She adored Dean Sampson. She absolutely loved him to bits, and she wanted Dean Sampson anyway. He'd got sent off, so so because he got sent off, he'd gone off with face on because Stuart Raper had told him off, or Stedman, whoever coach were at the time, and whoever took over, and Valsey ended up stepping in and having the picture taken, and to this day he still drops her a birthday message saying I remember that, and drops me one as well, mate. So for me, mate, he's top bloke for me, mate. But you know, he's a good man, and obviously he showed that he were on holiday on a booze cruise, wasn't he, with us, really? Yeah. But he still managed to step in, you know, to help us out with the coaching issues a couple of weeks ago. So great man. So anybody else, mate?
Just want to give another mention to sort of Nathan Massey as well. A really sort of another guy that come through academy and you know, played in 3 finals for us, and I think epitome of what a cast player is, an hard-working, solid, honest player and stuff like that. He'd
No airs and
definitely
graces.
sort of deserves a mention, doesn't he? But I think you can look no further than Valsey, can you, for that 13?
I think Val's is your one, mate. I think Val's is your man. Excellent, mate. So, and I agree with you on that. So we've got his team, mate. So
Got his team all set, haven't we?
just to recap then, mate. So fullback Luke Dawn. On the wing, Eden and Solomon are the only top trump we did, mate. Centres Webster and Shenton, who I think could be captain, to be perfectly honest. Him or Valsey, anyway. Probably Valsey captain, him vice captain. Rangi Chase at 6, Luke Gale at 7, props Sampson and Millington, Hooker Paul McShane, back row Holmes and Fritz, and then Adrian Vowles, mate. And do you know what? I think that team would definitely be a consistent top 6 team, mate.
Yeah, it was very, like I say, it's sort of, you feel a bit harsh leaving some of them players out, don't you? But it's very hard to sort of
100%.
choose from. We've been fortunate, we've had a lot of very good players at this club, haven't we?
We have indeed, mate. I'm sure people will put some comments on this saying you've missed this player, you've missed that player, which we probably have. I mean, we'll
You
probably
have to let us
do
know what your starting 13 would be in the comments.
That's it. I was going to say that, mate. And you know, we could probably do another one of these of some obscure players as well that people will forget. You know, like we say, like your Corkidas, Adrian Rainey, people like that you know they won't quite remember these players,
Paul
but they.
Franz.
Yeah, Paul Franz, Frano Botica. You know, these players of Byron Smith. There's one for you, Ryan Clayton, Damien Gibson. You know, these players have all played a part in the club, mate, albeit, you know, short or, you know, not as glorious as these, but, you know, 100 years old, mate, 30 years of Super League. You know, hopefully we're going on to bigger and better things again as a club now, and you know we can have this conversation when I'm 60 or 50, and we'll go from there again, mate, with some new names in there, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Like we say, a lot of those guys, we're very fortunate to have sort of supported them and what they've done for the club, and sort of moving forward. Fingers crossed, and we're confident that things will get better. Just got to stick by us and stuff. I know things seem very difficult at the minute, but you know we will get through this period.
Well, indeed, mate. We've done it before a number of times, mate. We'll do it again, and we'll come out the right side of things.
Yeah.
You know, the people working behind the scenes, mate. You know, we don't always see it firsthand like a lot of the fan base do, but from what we do see, mate, we know that they're working the socks off to make sure we are we're heading in the right direction and with the team that we want to be, mate. So
just want to pass
Tigers
our
fans.
best wishes on to Danny Wilson as well. We hope Danny's recovering all well. Send our best wishes.
All being well, mate. It will. You know the club don't run without its CEO. You know, no matter what people think, mate. You know, at the end of the day, he's not been well. So you know, like we say, best wishes to him, mate, and we hope he makes a speedy recovery on that.
Yeah. So, just leave your comments and let us know your suggested best 13s. And thank you for watching. See you on the next one.
See you soon.
The Tigers podcast is brought to you by Ramsdens Currency, exclusive foreign currency partner of the Castleton Tigers.